Alive and Well STL is a presentation of the St. Louis Regional Health Commission and Rare Gem Productions to build a healthier St. Louis. Power up with the positive. Learn more at oneraregem.com. That's ONERAREGEM.com.
Support for Alive and Well STL comes from Beyond Housing, helps entire communities become better places to live. Learn more at beyondhousing.org.
The Regional Health Commission works in partnership with regional health sector advocates and stakeholders to improve healthcare access, reduce health disparities, and improve health outcomes for the uninsured and the underinsured in St. Louis City and County.
Alive and Well STL with Bethany Johnson-Javois, CEO of the St. Louis Integrated Health Network and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission.
Today we talk about how gardening can positively affect our mental and spiritual well-being.
It's kind of the idea of mindfulness, which is a big topic that's discussed very often today. But when you're weeding, you're paying attention to how the roots form in the soil and how you're pulling them out of the soil and how the soil feels in your hands and how the tool feels in your hands. And you're just really there in the moment in what you're doing rather than getting lost in your brain and what happened yesterday or what am I going to cook for dinner, all of that. You're just mindful of where you are and what you're doing. And that's true of any activity that you're doing. The flip side of that also, you can use the garden as a space for existing self-care activities as well. So you can go in the garden to do yoga or journaling or meditation, or one of my favorite things to do is have friend dates in the garden. Just invite your friend to come and spend a few hours in the garden hanging out. And that's a good example of how to use the garden for the things that you're already doing for yourself, but really kind of augmenting them by your surroundings in the garden.
We'll be right back. So Rachel and Connie, as your introduction and as is standard on the Alive and Well STL broadcast, create a vision for us, especially based on the work that you're doing in therapeutic horticulture, and what it means to you to be alive and well in STL.
For me, being alive and well in STL means to know yourself well enough that you can seek and achieve your own personal well-being. I categorize this as self-care. This can be more challenging than it seems. I feel like half the battle is simply figuring out what you need to be emotionally, mentally, and physically well. And then that process takes a lot of self-evaluation, and it's difficult for everyone. So once you've figured out what you need, then it's time to take responsibility for maintaining your self-care routine. Ultimately, you're the only person that can fully be responsible for your well-being, and self-care can involve scheduled therapy sessions, a regular hobby, exercise, and a lot of other things. For me, gardening is a really critical component of self-care.
What do you think, Connie?
I agree with her. Mine's a little briefer. I think wellness in St. Louis would look like taking care of your mental and physical health and knowing that you can actually make a difference in those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Alive and Well STL.
Greetings and thank you again for joining us today. I am Bethany Johnson-Javois, host of Alive and Well STL and Managing Director of the Ferguson Commission. Today we are joined in the studio by Rachel Deffenbaugh, Urban Farm Manager at Gateway Greening, and Connie Fisher, Director of Mental Health Promotion at Mental Health America of Eastern Missouri. As we talk and think about what it means for our community to be alive and well, I am excited to be speaking with the two of you about how gardening can positively affect our mental and spiritual well-being. Thank you both for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Connie, welcome back to our show, and welcome back to the work. I've seen you quite a few times since the last time we spoke.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
So Rachel and Connie, especially based on the work that you're doing in therapeutic horticulture, I think in a lot of ways people may not think about gardening in quite this way, but for those who do it and enjoy it, it's definitely one of those things that helps in these areas. So Rachel, for some of us that may not be able to make the connection or maybe not want to make it directly between gardening and a means of therapy, talk to us about therapeutic horticulture. What is it and what's the benefit from those who partake in it?
Yeah, well, first I want to point out that anybody can benefit from taking part in therapeutic horticulture. It's not limited to anyone. There's a really important distinction that I want to point out between therapeutic horticulture and horticulture therapy, because this can get confusing for some people. Horticulture therapy is a clinically administered program through a registered therapist. It's a treatment for a specific medical issue. So this is a lot more in line with what you think about, like going to the doctor and getting some sort of treatment for whatever's going on with you.
Okay.
So that's horticulture therapy. Therapeutic horticulture is a lot broader. And like I said, it can really be beneficial for anybody who wants to gain benefit from it. It's a process that uses plants and plant-related activities in which participants strive to improve their own well-being. So in the garden, the question comes up then, how can I turn gardening into a therapeutic activity? And my answer for that really is intention. Anything that you're doing in the garden is important for the garden and maintaining your vegetables or your flowers, but your intention behind how you do it is what turns it into a therapeutic activity. So any activity can be therapeutic depending upon how you look at it. You can add therapeutic value to existing and necessary garden activities, or you can use the garden to do specific activities for your own therapeutic well-being. An example of both of these scenarios would be like weeding, for example. This is something that needs to happen in every garden. So to turn that into a therapeutic activity, all you need to do is focus your intention and your mind on the task that's at hand. It's kind of the idea of mindfulness, which is a big topic that's discussed very often today. But when you're weeding, you're paying attention to how the roots form in the soil and how you're pulling them out of the soil and how the soil feels in your hands and how the tool feels in your hands. And you're just really there in the moment in what you're doing rather than getting lost in your brain and what happened yesterday or what am I going to cook for dinner, all of that. You're just mindful of where you are and what you're doing. And that's true of any activity that you're doing. The flip side of that also, you can use the garden as a space for existing self-care activities as well. So you can go in the garden to do yoga or journaling or meditation, or one of my favorite things to do is have friend dates in the garden. Just invite your friend to come and spend a few hours in the garden hanging out. And that's a good example of how to use the garden for the things that you're already doing for yourself, but really kind of augmenting them by your surroundings in the garden.
Can you give us your reaction to this or ways that you've seen this be effective and helpful for people?
I think one of the things she's talking about with mindfulness is really important. Mindfulness keeps us in the present moment, makes us feel more powerful, and it helps us from missing living. Sometimes we get so caught up in the tasks of living, we just don't live. And I think being in the moment lets us do that. And the garden is a really good place to be in the moment because you're doing a task, but you can actually enjoy working and exercising. It's really neat. Also, you can connect to other people. And I remember a time when everyone knew their neighbor, everyone watched out for everybody's kids. We've become isolated in our neighborhoods lately. And this is a way that I think the garden does an excellent job of reconnecting people because people just walking to the garden, getting in the garden, meeting their neighbors again. And Rachel will probably talk about how they share their food with each other and with food pantries. It becomes a connection that I think is both mentally, physically, and spiritually healthier.
Well, how much money would I need or how much literal space would I need or how much skill do I need to do these things and have a garden? Is it very time consuming? Like how practical is it for people who may live in the urban core that may not live in a place where this is readily accessible? How would they go about creating this type of environment?
That's a great question. In St. Louis, we have a really wonderful resource in Gateway Greening, which is the organization I work for. Gateway Greening has helped to establish over 220 gardens throughout the city of St. Louis, and these are community and youth gardens. So some of them are in schools, and your kids are involved with them in their schools. And then the community gardens are available for community members to take part in. And honestly, odds are, wherever you live, there's a community garden within walking distance. That's really kind of one of Gateway Greening's goals, is to have community gardens accessible to as many people as possible in the city of St. Louis. If you haven't already noticed one, you can go to our website, www.gatewaygreening.org. We've got a map of all of our gardens out there. So if you're interested in getting into gardening, you can join a community garden. That's a really wonderful option. Another option, if that's something that's not feasible for you or that's just not where your interests lie, is to do a container garden. In the city, there's a lot of space issues. You don't necessarily have a big backyard where you can have a big, bountiful, beautiful garden. But even just having a few potted herbs or some potted kale or collard greens can be really beneficial for you, or keeping even just house plants in your house. It doesn't have to be a big, extravagant endeavor to actually get some benefits from having these plants surrounding yourself and involving gardening in your life and gaining benefit from it.
And Rachel, in your work with Gateway Greening, you have clients who struggle with very serious issues: homelessness, mental illness, addiction, recidivism, other forms of trauma are manifesting in different ways. Many of them are accustomed to receiving help from others. How is gardening shifting their mindset or making people feel differently about circumstances? What are you finding is happening?
Yeah, and a really important part to anybody's personal well-being is having a sense of purpose. And one way that a lot of people can get that is by helping others. And that's something we really encounter with a lot of the clients that we work with. A lot of them have no real self-direction or a strong sense of purpose or a strong sense of self. And there's no way that we can 100% build that up in anybody. That takes personal work on their part. But one way that we help them with that is by giving them an opportunity to help others. When you're in the position of receiving help and handouts in the form of food assistance or clothing or housing assistance, whatever the case may be, it doesn't really do anything for your own self-worth and your own self-respect. Even if you need that help, it's not building your self-confidence. So what we do with our clients is shift that frame of mind into doing the helping. And we do this through growing. Last year, we grew over 19,000 pounds of vegetables. A lot of those vegetables are either donated to food pantries or we sell to another nonprofit called Food Outreach here in St. Louis. And they do nutrition assistance for low-income people with HIV, AIDS, and cancer. So our clients are growing these vegetables for people who really need them. And one way that we bring that full circle for our clients is by taking them on a field trip. Every session we go on a field trip to Food Outreach. And at Food Outreach, we're then able to prepare meals, work with some of their clients, and really see how those vegetables that they've grown are impacting other people and helping other people. It's one thing to grow it and say, I'm helping other people, but actually seeing that happen and seeing the impact that you can have on others is really profound for our clients. And some of them have gone on to continue volunteering at Food Outreach or continue volunteering at the farm because they know that they're able to have that impact upon other people and really offer whatever they can to others. So that's really important for our program.
Connecting back to nature is always a good way to be able to recenter and to build a sense of community again as well. Not on the script, but I was thinking about something and going in different communities. Now, unfortunately, I'm seeing an increase in the pop-ups of community memorials because a person's life has been taken in that spot or a car accident or other things. Do you see ways in which community gardens can maybe connect with some of those memorials and become a different place where something can happen differently in the community with that?
That would be a wonderful thing. I know we have one. We're in the Shaw neighborhood, and there's one in the Shaw neighborhood. And I think that would be a great place because Shaw's, garden is there, to do a garden memorial that you don't have to cover up for the rain or the snow, but you're still acknowledging what happened there and the change that needs to continue to happen in St. Louis. So I think that would be great.
And that life really does continue with some of these outcomes that you're talking about. So, right. Connie, we talked a bit about a few ways that gardening can help us live our lives better, including connecting with others and helping other people and taking care of our spirit, which we know is important, particularly right now with our environment. We've left off a couple of important reasons, including one I need to do better, which is exercising and eating well, the direct benefit. How important are these two things in our life, and how does this relate to our mental well-being?
Well, exercise is known as the stress buster. Most of us don't like to do it. We're supposed to do 30 minutes a day. Most of us won't do that. Most of us will do 30 minutes 3 times a week. But the nice thing about the gardens, when Rachel and I did the summit for Way Greening, people were talking about how they work in the garden, but they don't notice that they're exercising because it's so much fun. You're really into what you're doing that you don't notice. And I think that's a good way to exercise if you're not liking it. I'm one of those people. And there's certain things that are harder. Rachel has some suggestions for taking care of yourself in the garden, like bending your knees and drinking a lot of water in the summer and things like that. And so I think that's a really good tool. And exercise also raises our serotonin levels, so mental health gets better with exercise in addition to just reducing stress. Eating well, same thing. Eating well contributes to all your mental health. When you grow your own vegetables, fruits, and whatever you're growing, their flowers included, you're more likely to eat those. And I think with children in particular, Rachel has talked about when you're working with children and you're trying to get them to eat more vegetables, if they're growing them, they're more likely to want to eat them. And that keeps our vitamins levels up and helps our mental health and our physical health.
Really practical. And so as we close, we always like to leave the audience with one thing that they can do today to make their life in some way better or to empower themselves in some way they maybe have not thought of. And this is a new idea perhaps for some of our listeners. So what would be the first step for someone that has never even thought about this, but today are thinking about the feasibility of it? What should their first step be in order to create this type of environment for themselves?
My best suggestion for that is to go to the Missouri Botanical Garden. This is a really wonderful place to gain inspiration, whether you have a green thumb or not, or think you have a green thumb or not. This is a place where you don't even need to be responsible for taking care of all these plants, but you can still gain a lot of inspiration from spending time out in nature and spending time with plants. And the wonderful thing about them, well, firstly, on Wednesdays and Saturdays, they are free to St. Louis residents. Got to give them your zip code and that's it. So you don't even have to pay to do it. And secondly, I know it's really kind of chilly outside right now. They've got a lot of indoor space too, where you can still spend a lot of time with plants and maybe go and meditate. That would be my recommendation. Go to the Botanical Garden and meditate. It's good for you.
Perfect. And for you, your closing
kind
comment?
of another one that's related to the Botanical Gardens is the butterfly house. Mm-hmm. I love the butterfly house because if you watch the film on butterflies, we don't really know what happens in that cocoon, and yet this wonderful thing comes out of this little bug. And to go in the butterfly house right now, it's 80 degrees in the butterfly house. There are lots of plants. You just have to be okay with bugs. You have to be able to stand there and let them light on you, and they're just gorgeous. And I think the blue ones are about to come out, and they're really pretty. And you can meditate there also. Whenever I'm down, I go to the butterfly house. It really boosts my mood and just reminds me that miracles can happen. And I think that's so important in St. Louis right now. Miracles can happen.
There's no better way to close with that. And I want to thank you both for your time and attention to these very important details that help us to live our best lives every day here in St. Louis and everywhere else. So thank you for joining. And thank everyone for joining us again for another episode of Alive and Well STL. We look really forward to speaking with you again next week. For more information about today's program and to become involved in Alive and Well STL, download the smartphone application Bonfire, BONFYRE, and search for Alive and Well or visit us online at aliveandwellstl.com. We'll be back again next week.
Alive and Well STL.
We are grateful for your gift of time to this conversation. We encourage you to stay involved and get involved.
If you, your family, or your organization is interested in talking about how we better the well-being of the region, sign up for more information, join the conversation, log on to aliveandwellstl.com, and let's build a plan on how we can work together and improve our overall health and become alive and well. The Regional Health Commission with Chief Executive Officer Robert Friend Jr. committed to providing a detailed review of change over the past decade in 14 leading health indicators for the city and county of St. Louis. The first decade review of health status report, an update to building a healthier St. Louis. Discover the narrative, the data, and celebrate the progress already made to improve healthcare access and reduce health disparities in our region. Learn more at stlrhc.org. Alive and Well STL is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening.